questions.
In a few of your previous videos, recent ones, you've been talking about the second attention as compared to the first attention.
Mm-hmm.
And you described a couple things that initially I would have definitely thought were first attention kind of things, but you described them as being second attention fixations or phenomena or otherwise. So one of them, for example, was you described a group of people who, let's say, are worshiping a donkey in Mexico, and they become
a sculpture of a donkey. I mean, it's a silly example because I don't want to step on anybody's toes.
Right. And you
Either
said
worshippers.
that something like, yes, you said something like that would be a fixation in the second attention. But I would have thought that that's an entirely first attention type of thing. Because it's this image of this donkey in the physical world that we see, and then people are attaching themselves to it emotionally, which is another, I would think, first attention thing. And then they're doing rituals for it and whatnot in this society, and it's all things that I would be able to name with words, which is kind of another thing you said.
Okay, for you it would be first attention from the outside, looking at it from the outside. From the inside, the subjective point of view, I shouldn't have used a donkey. I could have used... Is anybody worshiping Hanuman, the monkey, much anymore?
Maybe, I don't know. I'm sure there's somebody.
Do you know any of the attributes of Hanuman the monkey?
No.
Neither do I. I know Ram Dass was really into him. Okay, let's just say it's not a monkey. Let's say it's Hammerman the chimpanzee, and Ram Dass is worshiping him. And he's trying to get the attributes of Hammerman the chimpanzee into him. And so he visualizes... this is kind of sounds silly, so let's not ridicule it, but no, just take it. Once you're doing the tantric practice, it's not in the first attention. Although the donkey may look like it's first attention, and it is from the third person perspective. From the first person perspective, the person who is doing the practice, it involves something else, something magical.
Okay.
Maybe we should just talk about my experience with Tantra.
That's good, yeah, because that's another one I also thought was first attention.
Well, there is no Tara. That's completely an imaginary being.
Okay.
So you're visualizing something that's not there, ultimately. And then the process of merging, first visually and then otherwise, is not first attention. How can you merge with something that's not there?
So I guess it's a matter of the perspective you're saying that. Because from somebody from the outside, I would say, I could give names to all those things. It would be, I'm imagining a picture, and then I'm just trying to act like the picture that I'm seeing. I'm trying to be kind.
You can't visualize the love, the compassion, the kindness, the wisdom, the generosity, the patience of Tara. You can't even begin to feel what I feel when I just evoke that image.
Okay. And the same thing for mandala practice?
Well, the same thing for communion for Catholics.
Uh-huh. But, okay.
Happy Easter, by the way. Happy Easter.
Right, happy Easter.
I feel kind of bad doing this on an Easter, but, I guess not bad enough. But go ahead. Yeah, so the communion wafer for Catholics.
So I would think that's more of a first attention emotional...
The body and blood of Christ in a wafer and a chalice? You call that first attention? Do you ever talk to about that, just a non-Christian?
Yeah, they think it's pretty out there. Or, yeah, but...
These things are not to be judged from the outside by anybody. And it makes me feel uncomfortable to even start to do that, because it does sound bizarre to someone who isn't part of that world. And that world, I would say, is in the second attention.
Okay. Makes more sense to me.
And more. And I don't mean to minimize or categorize Holy Communion. I'm just using it as an example for now.
Then we can go to one that's a little less charged. For example, you're talking about the energy going into a max security prison.
Okay.
And you said that the energy, the deeper you got in there, gets so dense, so thick, so dark that it's hard to do any work at all.
Right.
And you said we don't have the appropriate words or explanations for that, because a lot of that's in the second attention.
So let me try and describe it to you. You go to the front of this prison,
Yeah.
and there's some fairly, normal looking guards on the outside. And you go through some paperwork, and you have a little badge or whatever they gave me. I don't recall exactly. And then they open these iron gates, and you go to the next level. And then some other guards come, and they're looking more like prison guards. And they open another set of gates, and you go down a hall, and then there's another set of gates with these thick iron bars. And then it's getting darker, literally. And you see people moving around, and you go through another set of these iron, and they're clanging behind you too. And then you see a prisoner being walked by, and he's flanked by 4 guards. And I ask, well, why does that guy have 4 guards with him? He says, oh, to keep him from getting killed by the other inmates. They want to kill him. I think he was a child molester or something. And you just keep going deeper into that institution, and then pretty soon you're in with guards that look like they haven't. It feels like the 3rd ring of hell, or 4th ring. I don't know hell that well, but. And everybody looks like they've been in prison. And then I went to talk to there were a few psychiatrists there, because this is a big prison. People don't know this, but at the time, I don't know what it is now, but this is moving to Southern California. The largest psychiatric facility in the world was the LA County Jail. And, I don't know if people realize that. Anyway, going back north to the Bay Area, I talked to some of the shrinks that work there, and they're glazed over, and they're not thinking right. They're not thinking right at all, and the whole place is just thick with this malevolent stuff. Now, what's your question?
So, yeah, thinking through or imagining that right now, I can see what you mean about the feeling of the energy getting deeper. And I've definitely been in situations where I can feel something like that. But to me, it sounds like that could also largely be explained in the first attention.
Oh, really?
Because,
talk to a scientist about the aura of a prisoner who's on death row.
So yeah,
you can approximate things in the first attention, I suppose, but you miss much of it.
Okay, so there's elements that are missing, is what you're saying. Because otherwise, it would make sense in the first attention.
Tell me how you describe it in the first attention.
Sure. So there's all the background context that plays into the person's, just like, I guess you could call it subconscious. I'm talking to somebody who's killed people.
Subconscious? Where's that? What's that?
Fair enough. But what I mean is the context. Let's just stick to the word context.
Describe the context. What's the context?
I'm talking to somebody who is particularly dangerous to me as a human animal.
No. I've interviewed many people on death row. I did that for a living for like maybe 7 years. I mean, people who were going to be executed, they'd call me in to see if they could, there was any way to get them off on the basis of their, hideous childhood or something. And they've said it's not the same thing at all. Not at all the same thing. Some of these guys are really jovial and really smart and really articulate, and they don't have that energy coming out them at all. I mean, I had a guy tell me about throwing a baby out of a window, second story window. This guy had killed 4 people, and on his way out of a place that he had robbed and killed the woman, he threw the baby out the window just for the hell of it. And he didn't have that kind of energy. And I talked to the head of the Aryan Brotherhood at the time, this white guy, not a tattoo on him, extremely intelligent, very, very articulate, a charming guy. He didn't have any of that energy.
So let's say he wasn't charming then. Like one of these gentlemen who's not charming.
Real sociopaths do not give off that energy. Real sociopaths do not give off that energy. Look at a tape of Ted Bundy. Look at a tape of Ted Bundy.
Right.
So the energy's normal. Not normal, but it's you can't detect anything.
Yeah,
that's one of the diagnostic criteria for a psychopath, is that you can't detect it. That's how we were taught. You don't know if you're dealing with a real psychopath unless 2 other psychiatrists have missed the diagnosis.
Interesting. Okay. That's starting to make more sense to me.
Okay. Follow up?
I have a follow-up about cultivating the second attention. You said that to cultivate the second attention, what's important is you must be an impeccable warrior.
Yes.
And you said that you need to be well established in the first attention, or be living perfectly in the first attention.
You need to be an impeccable warrior to do any of this stuff. To be doing Buddhist Tantra, you need to be an impeccable warrior.
To do Buddhist Tantra, you need to be an impeccable warrior. You mean to do the visualization and the merging, all of that takes being an impeccable warrior.
Yes. Otherwise, your energy's being sucked out by things like internal conflict and guilt, or oh, I should have done this different, or I hate that person, I'm going to get back at him, just petty little human crapola. And if your mind's got all that gunk in it, you can't do this work. You can't be envious or jealous or selfish and do this work at this level. Then you're getting into things like voodoo, right? And it's deranged.
Right. Uh-huh. But don't Buddhist tantrists, tell me if I'm wrong, don't they start some of that work before they've resolved all their internal conflicts, jealousies, things like that, or no?
To get to the Vajrayana, for example, that's the one I know. You have to have already gotten through the paramitas, through your petty little issues. You're not focused on your personal history, and you're not focused on getting what you want. You're focused only on getting truth. That's your overarching goal. It's just like the Toltec. The most important thing for someone searching truth is to be impeccable. And then maybe God will smile on you.
Mm-hmm.
Is that making sense? Does that make sense?
That makes sense, but it's almost...
I said impeccable, not perfect.
Tell me the difference.
Jesus was perfect. We're not.
Okay. So, then I'm having a little trouble understanding the picture that Don Juan's painting about impeccable. Because impeccable means without sin or without error, but it's different than perfect. Being impeccable is... Are you telling me that people doing the visualization in Buddha Tantra don't have any little internal conflicts coming to them?
The ones that are successful, put that aside. Whatever they may have, they put it aside with their unbending intent.
Right.
And they have will. They have will at their back, and they're doing everything they can, and they're working. They've turned their life into the quest for truth, the quest for God, the will of well, not your will, but mine. That they mean it. They say it and they mean it. Not my will, but yours, Lord. It becomes the most consuming thing in their life, the most important thing in their life.
Right.
And they handle everything else as they're doing it.
I have a follow-up to that.
Okay. Try and state it as a full question, if you can.
Yes. In a previous video, you said that the people who are most successful in doing this kind of work are those who turn their lives into a prayer, was one of the phrases you used.
Yes, sir.
And you said you could be combing your hair and be doing it for the Buddha.
Yeah.
Can you describe what you mean by that? Like, I'm combing my hair, I'm doing it for the Buddha.
Well, there's many different ways to do that. At one level, everything you do is in service of purifying intent or purifying practice. And so as you take the tangles out of your hair, you're taking the complications out of your practice. As you wash your face, you're removing the defilements on your mind. As you scrub your back, you're removing the obfuscations or the defilements or the impurities in your heart that you can't see. You just keep going like that. And then later you're combing the Buddha's hair. But that's later, much later.
So it's
much later, I should say. So when you brush your teeth, you're brushing off the accretions that you've accumulated from your petty little, selfish desires. And when you're soaping off, you're washing off the grime off your visual apparatus. There's 1,000 ways. Are you following me? Are you following me? How this works?
I'm following you because I'm reading the flower ornament scripture and it talks about some of that, and so I've been doing some of that.
Oh, good,
I'm washing my hands.
Good.
I'm washing my hands, and I'm. It's weird because I'm wondering what you mean by now I'm washing off the accretions of mundane conditioning on my psyche, or
that's second attention. That's second attention. Good.
So is that like when I'm doing something, I'm conceiving of it as doing it for this purpose? That's what you mean. Like,
what's the purpose?
They say making offerings to the Buddhas.
I don't care what they say. What do you say?
For me, it's development.
Of what?
Like they're I don't really have words for it. They say yin energy, like in the
you don't have words for it? You don't have words for it? Can you see how that's kind of second attention? You're purifying practice. This is purifying practice. Do you have the Avatamsaka there?
Yeah, right here.
Can you find a particularly useful 5 lines for people and read them slowly and carefully? I don't have it with me, which is not good.
Yeah. I can find a couple lines. Purifying Practice. Oh yeah, so this is one of the chapters. I just came through this a little while ago.
Which chapter is Purifying Practice, by the way?
It's literally called 11.
All right.
It's literally called Purifying Practice.
What a coincidence. Okay, keep going. Let's go.
Sure. I'm just trying to get away from the ones that are very clearly for monks. Here. When entering a hall, they, enlightening beings, should wish that all beings ascend to the unexcelled sanctuary and rest there secure, unshakable. When setting out a seat, they should wish that all beings cause good principles to bloom and see their true character. Sitting up straight, they should wish that all beings sit on the seat of enlightenment, their minds without attachment. Sitting cross-legged, they should wish that all beings have firm and strong roots of goodness and attain the state of immovability. Cultivating concentration, they should wish that all beings conquer their minds by concentration, ultimately with no remainder.
So can you see how impoverished my examples are compared to theirs? The second century Sufis. Okay, so now there's a couple of things you should notice here. One is that they've already incorporated the Bodhisattva vow, for example. That they want the enlightenment of all sentient beings. They're not just working for themselves; they're working for everybody else, and they want to. So they want everyone else to be cultivated alongside them. So they're doing it completely out of altruism and exchanging self for others. And they've already interiorized the vow that it's not enlightenment for one person; it's enlightenment for everybody. And they're not going to stop until the whole planet is enlightened. All the sentient beings are enlightened on the planet. That's the Bodhisattva vow, and that's the vow that the Dalai Lama administered to me. And I didn't understand it at all. When I was taking it, it scared me to death because I was thinking, oh my God, how can I be taking a vow and I don't even understand what it meant? Enlighten all sentient beings? But I trusted the guy, and the guy had enormous power, especially during this thing. And he had a whole team of people that were accumulating power in the first few days. And then when it came time for the actual I don't even know what empowerment, I'm not sure what it was, they had accumulated 2 or 3 days worth of power themselves before they came out and blasted us. So yeah, I don't see what the problem is. What's the question? If you're walking down the hall, you wish for the what? I can't read my writing.
When entering a hall, they should wish that all beings ascend to the unexcelled sanctuary.
Okay, all beings ascend to the unexcelled sanctuary. That would be nirvana or something, Buddha land, or the Buddha verse. Next one, something about self. Or what is the next one?
When setting out a seat. Like
when you're putting out a chair, right? You wish what?
That all beings cause good principles to bloom and to see their true character.
So good principles to bloom and to see the good character of good principles, all right? That's when they put a chair out. What's the next one?
Sitting up straight, they should wish that all beings sit on the seat of enlightenment, their minds without attachment.
Yeah, when you sit up straight, you think, okay, I wish all beings I wish for the enlightenment of all sentient beings. And ultimately you realize you are all sentient beings, and all sentient beings are you. And let's do one last one. So this is an incantation. This is a mantra practice. This is a sutra practice, and these are repeated into your mind, and they have a certain not only the mnemonics, but also the rhythm, the pacing, the whole thing is set up to transform your consciousness, which it does. This is pretty dry compared to the rest of the sutra. Okay.
Yeah.
Shall we move on?
Yeah.
But do you see how all things turn into practice?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. It's a very powerful practice, by the way. Very powerful. You do that, you hang around with a mala, you use the mala, and you just practice as much as you can, and you wake up. That's what happens. That's what it's there for. Next question. I can't see you anymore, just FYI.
Yeah. I was just going to my notes.
Alrighty.
About so there are a ton of practices and things to focus on. For example, impermanence and emptiness and contemplating space-time, all of that.
That's one thing, my friend. That's one thing. That's emptiness.
That's all just emptiness.
Yeah, it's really very simple. One thing. State them again. Space-time is empty. Things are impermanent. They're empty. What's left?
Okay. Death, but that's impermanence.
That's impermanence also. It's just like the Toltec. It's very simple. People make it complicated.
Can you help me out with contemplating emptiness? So, for example, the other day I was looking at my TV, and I was.
Okay, let's make that a question. Make it a question. Question.
Can you help me understand how to contemplate emptiness? So, for example, I was contemplating my television in the style of a demonstration you did with a pencil in a previous video. And I was thinking about, all right, when did this begin as a television? And it's really hard to start. It starts with a bunch of raw materials in the earth, which took millions of years to develop.
Okay.
And then somebody pulls them out, develops parts, puts them together, eventually get a TV. But if the TV was cut in half, would it still be a TV? Not really, because it doesn't serve the function of a TV. Each of the elements of the TV is composed of other elements and ultimately just full of waves of energy, and then in between those just space. And so I'm going through this is that kind of how one contemplates the emptiness of a physical object?
Yes. Now do it with your body and your mind. But that's the beginning. That's interdependent origination. Nothing exists inherently by itself. Everything is made of something else. And when you get down to it, that something else turns out to just be waves of something that we give the word energy to. Right? So that's one facet of it. Nothing exists inherently. Nothing exists in the way that we imagine it exists. It exists that way only provisionally. And if we were to look at it differently, it wouldn't look like a TV at all. If you look at a TV from underneath, it doesn't look like a TV. Why would you call it a TV?
Yeah, I guess it would.
Turn the TV on its side and look at the legs, right? I'm thinking of the old timey TVs. And you don't have a TV there, you've got something else. So that would be interdependent origination, and everything in the universe, including you, is subject to that law. And so if we decide to call something something, we do it only temporarily, provisionally, because nothing exists inherently. Ultimately, nothing exists at all. Talk to a philosopher.
Intellectually, it makes sense to me.
Okay, well then get it into your bones. Now you get it into your bones, into your marrow, and you do that by contemplating this over and over and making sure that you actually understand that, because that's only one facet of emptiness.
So another facet I was thinking of was, like when I first wake up, my eyes are closed, and then all I have is sounds and physical sensations. And it made me realize that, like any physical object, I'm holding up a book right now, my relationship to it is really just the flat image that I see, and then the physicality is kind of just a feeling. It's like a feeling of pressure. Or
That's what we
you
call that. We call that a feeling of pressure. We could call it something else. And by the way, other people, for example, some people can see, no, they can hear color. Other people can, synesthesia is what it's called. This comes up because in later practices, especially in the Toltec tradition with Carlos Castañeda, etc., they're in the second attention, they're visualizing things in ways that makes no sense, but you need to understand that the capacity for synesthesia is something that can be induced to some extent, and I suppose it can be cultivated. I don't see why you'd want to do that, but you could. So what are some of the ones? They can hear color. Numbers have a certain sound. What are some other things these folks do?
People see music.
Yeah. So Beethoven probably saw, the deaf Beethoven probably heard the nuances of the Ninth Symphony in the second attention because he was deaf.
Right, it would be like dreaming or visualization.
Yeah, dreaming. I suppose visualization, depending on how you use that word. Not visualization using your eyes. Visualization using your second attention. I'm sorry. Now, what was the question?
The question was about contemplating emptiness. So you're saying keep on doing this over and over again until it gets into your bone. Like I might do it with my phone and my body, my mind,
do it with yourself first. That's it. The highest yield is yourself. Try and find yourself. That'd be the way to go. And then when you finally realize, and it sinks into the marrow of your body, into your bones, that there is no inherent self there. There's just a bunch of ideas and a temporary thing that we call a body. Very temporary. Go ahead.
Can you tell me about the sinking into the bones? Because so I've done a
question.
Can you tell me about emptiness or contemplation of there being no self, quote, sinking into your bones, end quote?
Into the marrow, yeah.
The marrow. Because I've run through the trying to find myself things a few times, and then I always end up empty-handed, naturally.
Exactly. You end up empty.
But I wouldn't say it's sunk into my bones, because I still do I sometimes take things personally. I still have some self-importance, things of that nature. So I don't think it's sunk into my bones, but I don't know what that means.
I think you do know what it means.
Yeah, man. All right, then can I ask you, do you never feel like...
Question.
Do you never feel like you have a self like you once did?
Can you ask that some other way? Because I have to have a self to, apply for a driver's license. I have to have a self to, pay my taxes. I have to, they create a self for me if I don't do it. So I don't understand what the question is. It's not that there's nothing there. It's that it exists in a manner that you don't believe, that you don't suspect. So there is a tree there, but the tree is something different than what you imagine, even though it looks like a tree. By the way, I learned something recently in the ancient seers understood that we are more closely related to trees than we are to ants. And that makes perfect sense to me. It's much easier to become a tree than it is to become an ant. And they also talked about the assemblage point for a tree being lower down on its body than for other creatures, but I think that's because of the deep root systems. All right, I'm sorry, but so yeah, of course I have a self if I need to, if I need to buy insurance, if I need to, drive a car.
Okay.
I mean, that's a self that exists socially and interpersonally or whatever. People imagine all kinds of things, including me. And so I suppose by imagining me, they've created something. But that's not myself. That's their myself. That's their creation of me by somebody else or someone else's. Okay? I mean, I don't... That's about the best I could do with that right now. Next question.
So I noticed that when I'm alone in my apartment throughout the day, or if I'm just talking to one person one-on-one, I don't know how to describe this in words, but I'm quite aware, or things are clear. There's not much talking in my head, all of that. But if I'm at a party talking to a bunch of people and it's quite loud, or if I'm working and in front of my computer for a long time, then it's like there's a cloudiness and I don't really feel quite there. It's kind of like I'm gone, or what they might describe in the Secret of the Golden Flower as oblivion almost. It's kind of like the time is passing and there's not clarity.
The mitote.
As much.
Yeah, you're lost to the mitote. A fog.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
You've got gunk on your mirror in the Zen sense.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
All right.
And there are specific times where that happens.
No kidding.
So, yeah. Like one of them I noticed particularly is a dinner party or a house, more like a party with a bunch of people.
So you need to practice turning the light around during those situations to where you can become expert at it. It doesn't bother you anymore. You can do it. Turn the light around no matter what the circumstances.
Okay.
If you ever have a date and you're at a horror movie or something like that, that's a perfect time to turn the light around. Did I tell you I woke up during Toy Story?
You did tell me about that.
Yeah, that was crazy. This was after. I mean, I started getting blasted, and then about 2 weeks or 3 weeks, something like that in, I went to see Toy Story. In the middle of Toy Story, boom, again. So it's not the place; it's the mindset and the conditions internally. So now, yeah, you got to practice. Onward through the fog. The boomers will enjoy that one. Onward through the fog. So now, yeah, you just practice while whatever it is. And if there's something with heightened emotion, that's the best time to practice. So if you're at a horror movie, that's perfect. So you're in the I don't know, Freddy or whoever it is. The guy with the long mask, who's that?
Jason.
Jason's about ready to knife.
That's Scream. That's Scream.
All right. So whoever that is like going to stab somebody, and then you turn the light around just as it gets the scariest, and just watch it, because it's just a show. So yeah, you cultivate your capacity. Mm-hmm. If you're really angry, that's a perfect time to turn the light around. Or sad, or whatever. Just a heightened emotion is a great time to practice, in fact.
Okay. I have a question from the Fire from Within. It's also a post you made.
Alrighty.
Where you said, or you didn't say this. This is Don Juan. But you posted the quote: "Warriors must purposely seek change." And I have I don't know if you would just want to comment on that specifically, I'm interested in, but I also have the passage it comes from. I didn't know if you left out the context on purpose or not.
I'm pretty sure I left it out on purpose.
Okay, then let's stick to that. Warriors must purposely seek change.
What's to discuss? You're in one state or one stage of development. You need to change it to another stage. You must purposefully elevate your stage of consciousness.
That makes sense. I see why
You're living
okay.
your dull, pathetic, puny, little meager life, living in this tiny little circle of things that exist and people who are preoccupied with the same things over and over and over for day after day, week after week, month after month, year over year. You get tired of it. And if you're a warrior, you change it. You start to see them as Buddhas, testing your patience. You start to see, you stop judging situations as good or bad. You just see them as chances to practice. You change your mentality to that of a warrior, no matter what the circumstances. There are no good and bad problems. There's only chances to learn. A warrior never feels self-pity. If you feel self-pity, that's a very good sign that you need to do something different, or find another thing to do. Like maybe you should take up making blankets or something, quilting. All right?
Yeah.
Question. All right. So one last question before we go. Anything quick?
Something quick.
All right.
Shadows. Shadows being an entry to non-doing.
That's not quick.
Okay.
All right.
I'll leave it for another time.
Okay, sir. Keep the faith, guard your mind. Talk to you later.